Hello everybody and welcome to this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division with variable wins for the Northshore Tournament here in Golf Clash the game. We're gonna play a full 9 of the Maple Bay and I will give you several different alternatives on several holes here in this playthrough to give you an idea on how to attack the Maple Bay. Because Maple Bay is a course that we have played many times. A video sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and before we take a look at the videos, make sure that you do hit that thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. You can improve your tour gameplay and tournament gameplay by going to patreon.com/golfclashtommy and check out any of our packages. We are the first and only content creator that do offer both tour exclusive tour guides and ultimate tournament guides for you all. So check it out, link directly in the description down below. Follow the info box on the right hand side to get the elevation adjustment, club distance adjustment, also what ball and club type I suggest you to play with. Have in mind that these are all suggestions and you don't have to follow what I do suggest, but there's always a plan behind it. So let's go to hole number 1. For hole number 1, we can play either left or right, and in this example we will be playing to the left hand side using the rock and a katana ball. If having crosswind or tailwind, the only thing that we do need is a power 2 ball. If we would be playing in headwind, I would recommend to play with a power 3 ball instead to minimize the need of overpower. Obviously, playing with a power 3 ball in headwind with the rock may give us some overpower needed, but we could change then to another driver that has more power, such as the extra mile, Thor's hammer, or the Apocalypse. Adjustment is going to be maximum distance plus 10, and we're using spin that's going to be somewhere between 2 bars of topspin to 5 bars of topspin, depending on what type of wind direction we are going to have. Bouncing on the fairway, and we're gonna have a pretty high first bounce, have that in mind. The next fairway slopes a little bit left to right, so we need to aim deliberately a little bit more left to make sure that the ball is gonna stay on the fairway. Second shot, we do play with a grizzly if possible. Those of you that do have the chance to play with the B52 can also do that. The thing that we do want to have with our long iron though is the ball guideline. You better ball guideline you have, the better chance you're gonna have to drop this shot. Now, we're going to play for the rough bump, and even though it looks scary, it's not going to be that scary. It, in the end though, will be the best possible chance for us to make the eagle from this direction. Yellow ring by the rough line, ball guideline to the hole when it comes to tailwind, very important. If we do have tailwind, we will have to have the ball guideline just through the hole. Having headwind, we need to have the ball guideline pretty heavily through the hole, approximately 2 to 3 green squares, as we are otherwise going to fall short. This shot is going to be played generally medium distance plus a 10, and we get this one coming pretty hot, but we get it to drop here as well. You can see the info box. I do suggest a Kingmaker as a power 3 ball, and I would say in general I would always go for a power 3 ball here if possible, but as I explained in the beginning, if the wind is in our favor, we can most definitely go with a power 2 ball to save our better balls. Hole 1 is definitely a good chance to start off with an eagle. For hole number 2, it's going to be a pretty heavy downhill drive that we're going to play. I'm going to play with 3.8 bars of topspin, 2 bars of left spin, and I'm going to use the rock when I play in crosswind or in tailwind. If I would be having headwind, to prevent myself from having to go with overpower, I will use a different driver with more power, such as the extra mile, Thor's hammer, or the Apocalypse. Ball guideline to be centered down the fairway. And once we have found that spot, we're going to adjust for maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment. 20% over adjustment is a little bit stronger than normal due to the fact that we're playing it downhill. Here I do something after my adjustment that I don't really normally do, and that is to push up my target after I made my adjustment. Why do I do that? It's because I do want to get myself a couple of extra yards without having to go with overpower. It's not really needed because here we're not playing a linear hole, so if you just keep ourselves, you know, around the right hand side of the rough, or like by the rough, then we are still going to be fine. But if you want to push it a little bit harder, might get just a couple of yards closer to pin, then push up your target a little bit after your adjustment. Second shot, now we're going to play an aggressive line, and the reason for that is that there isn't really any other line to get an albatross here, because we can't play on the right side, because that's just going to be a complete gamble, and most likely just going to end up with green with backspin and just pot it in for an eagle. But we do want to focus, and we do want to push it for an albatross here, so I'm adding topspin, which is going to be somewhere around 2 bars of topspin in crosswind, a little bit less in tailwind. In headwind is going to be a little bit more. Aim with the white ring by the rough line, second bounce into the center of the rough on the other side with the ball guideline through the hole. Adjustment is going to be 10% elevation, and depending on where we are with our drive, we are either going to play medium distance or maximum distance or somewhere in between. And we're going to get close if we hit perfect. That's what's happening here. But as there is many factors that could many things that could happen along the way once we have hit that ball to bounce on the fairway, then into the rough, then roll, means that we won't be seeing a consistent albatross on this hole. But getting it a time or two is definitely going to be makeable, and if you do that, you will definitely have an advantage over your opponent. For hole number 3, you will see 2 types of play. One where we do bounce on the fairway, and one where we go for a rough bomb. 3.5 bar backspin and 1.5 bar side spin to the right when it comes to having wind slightly northwest. I'm starting here to be very close to max distance of my club with a blue ring by the rough line to the right. You can see plus 6-yard mark, which would be the same with Grizzly 8. If you play with Grizzly 11-9, you start at plus 3-yard mark. Maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment power 3 ball settings is what I'm using. Have in mind that you don't have to play with a Kingmaker here. It is recommended though, because we do want to reduce the wind as much as possible, but you could as equally well play with a Titan, and that would still be fine. Bounce, 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 get in the hole then. Can we get any closer than that? Very close though, good chance with the bounce over. The rough bump is an interesting line, but only recommended in certain winds, and we're gonna take a look at that one now. For the rough bump option, we're gonna play with a sniper. Very important that you do have the possibility to play with a sniper, as the accuracy and the ball guideline will help you loads in setting this up and also executing this shot. First, we add spin. Max side spin to the right, and we're gonna use backspin to leave the ball guideline approximately 1 green square short of a pin. That is with wind that is with crosswind left to right. When the wind coming right to left, we should not do that. The reason for that is when we do have wind coming right to left, we are going to not have that extra push by adjusting from a lower to a higher point, which we do here. So I adjust this one medium distance, no elevation, but as you can notice here, we're gonna miss to the left. So I would recommend us to play with medium distance, minus 5% elevation, power 3 ball settings. One thing as well to have in mind here though, that you could see on my wind arrow, that wasn't straight when I was pulling my rings. I was using a heavy 12-1 to that shot, and that's because I'm pulling myself up to a higher point. So, if you're going to play this shot with wind left to right and adjusting from a lower to a higher point, you need to use a 12-1 to compensate for the extra ball flight that we're going to have from adjusting from a higher to a lower point. If attempting the rough bump in wind right to left, then we're not adjusting to a higher point, and therefore you don't need to compensate in that way. In my opinion, I would say both options is viable. It's down to you to decide what you feel comfortable with playing. For hole number 4, I will give you 2 types of play. One where we do play just a normal way, and one where we do play aggressive. So we're gonna start with a more normal way here, which is to play to the right. 4.5 bar topspin, 3 bar side spin to the right, and look to where I aim here. You see the second bounce to be approximately 1 ring above the rough. Adjustment is gonna be maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment. When it comes to playing on the right side, I would say that side is going to generally be played in crosswind or in headwind, but also with some tailwind together with crosswind. Because when you do have tailwind, it all comes down to what type of club do you have and what type of ball or do you have the possibility to use. And in this case, we play with lower level clubs and also with lower level type of ball. 320. From there, we're gonna play a rough bump, and yes, a rough bump is going to be, what can I say? A rough bump is often the best way to consistently drop shots. And now you can see that I do play with the Goliath. It's because I only had the Grizzly level 6 on this account when I play this hole. And just to have in mind that the Grizzly is a much better club than the Goliath in a situation like this. Why? It's because of its accuracy and also because of its ball guideline. Goliath or Grizzly or whatever club you're playing with, when you play in headwind for the rough bump, you need to aim very close to the rough line. Ball guideline needs to go through the hole because in headwind we do get a compressed ball guideline. In tailwind we do get an extended ball guideline and you need to leave the ball guideline just slightly short. In crosswind, ball guideline to the hole as always. 15% elevation, true distance, and you're gonna get this one to drop right at pin for an eagle. Let's take a look at the more aggressive option, which will be the play, once again, if you have the ball or club, and club for tailwind shots. For the more aggressive option here on hole number 4, I would recommend to go with the driver that gives you the absolute most power possible. And we're looking to hit the rough just in between the two bunkers by the green. 4.5 bar topspin, 2 bar side spin to the left, and you can see that I stretch out the max to visualize where my first bounce is going to be. Once that is done, we adjust max plus 10. And you can see here now that when we do have tailwind and play with a big boy driver, which I would like to call every club that do have 240 yards of power, then we don't need to push up to max. You can see here that I did push up to only plus 22 and I can play a normal shot. Great ball to the right, obviously it's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a perfect ball, but you can see that we do have a lot of room for error here with a shot like that, and we roll out nicely onto the fairway for a super duper simple eagle. I would say if we do have tailwind here, we should attempt to go for it. And as you can see there, if we have more tailwind than we do have crosswind, we can even go for it without having to go with any overpower, which obviously makes it a super easy decision. So, again, if you're playing in tailwind, or I would say more tailwind than crosswind, then you go for it, always. Or you had headwind or crosswind, then you don't go for it, then you lay up on the right side, take your chances with a rough bump. Hole number 5 is, in my opinion, the toughest of the holes when it comes to the Maple Bay. And if we do have a headwind, it's going to be even tougher. Here I'm using a power 4 ball, which is a special ball, but you can play the same type of play here using a Kingmaker. Because in headwind, we just need to be realistic. We're not going to get the Albatross. Yeah, you know, nothing is impossible, but this is going to be close to it, because we won't reach far enough on our drive to get a fair chance for the Albatross on our second shot. You will notice that later on in the video. So, and that's also the reason why I in headwind always going to play with the Cataclysm as my second shot club. If you do not have the Cataclysm, I could recommend the Big Dog, as it has the same power, and that's the only thing really that we're looking for the second shot, once again in headwind. If we would be having tailwind, then we can make a decision. We can obviously reach further on that first fairway, that using backspin and land it on that fairway where we ended up with now, but further up. Or we use a power 5 ball trying to clear most of the fairway to bounce just before the rough and roll out to the third fairway instead. And obviously, in tailwind, we are going to have a much better chance for an Albatross. And I would say that if we do reach over to that final fairway, it's going to be a must drop. Unfortunately, I don't have a video for you, but I'm just trying to explain the different possibilities that we do have. But again, go back to the headwind part that we do have. We have headwind again for the second shot. If we play with a power 5 ball, we may reach to go for the Albatross here by going a sand bump or a rough bump towards the pin. But to be completely honest, having to go with a lot of overpower to reach to that, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So I end up to use a little bit of backspin and all the side spin to the right that I do have, and planning to get the ball to go up to the top left corner of that range fairway part and to fall down towards the pin. That's going to be extremely difficult to get that ball to drop, so give yourself room for error. Maybe not aim as close to the rough line that I'm doing there, because I don't really have that much room for a great right. 10% elevation, max distance here as well, and then we, you know, again, would use overpower if we adjust into overpower. You can see that the ball gets up there to the top left, but we are not getting it far enough up and also too much to the right. And again, in headwind, we're gonna see this as an eagle hole. If we do have tailwind, we're gonna push it. We're gonna try to get that albatross. In crosswind, it all depends on what type of direction the crosswind is going to be if we're gonna have a chance for an albatross here on Maple Bay hole number 5. The toughest of the Maple Bay holes, which is once again very boring in headwind, but could be a bit funny in tailwind or crosswind. Hole number 6, I would say that using a wind resistance ball with more than, like a wind 4 or wind 5 is not bad. But I wanted to still use this video and still explain to you that you can play with a ball that has, worse wind resistance than that, like a Kingmaker as suggested in the info box. We're gonna try to keep at least the suggestions to a free-to-play level here. So we adjust with spin, having the top of the yellow ring by the edge of the rough line. Ball guideline to the hole, very important. Then we're gonna adjust maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment power 2 ball settings, which is 6 rings when we do have 5 miles per hour. Then we're gonna try to hit perfect, and even if you hit the great left or great right, you will still clip the rough, so you don't have to be nervous or worried about that. So you hit the rough very nicely and rolls, take that little curve that is on the right of the green to fall down into the hole for a lovely hole-in-one. I consider this one to be a very good chance for an hole-in-one by using the rough bump method as we are doing there. But have in mind, once again, you don't have to play with a special ball here. You can play with a Kingmaker and still have as equal good chance to drop this shot. Sniper is essential due to its accuracy and its ball guideline. For hole number 7, you will see 2 types of play, one aggressive and one more conservative. We're gonna start with the more conservative version, where we go with 4.5 bar topspin and 3 bar side spin to the left. We're gonna aim for the first bounce on the fairway pad inside the sand. Adjustment is gonna be maximum distance plus 10. Once that is done, to prevent us from going into the rough on the right, we need to use curl. And I'm using approximately 3/4 of a ball curl left. Bouncing nicely on the fairway, and the goal here for us is to get this ball as far up the fairway possible, because the closer to the end of the fairway we are, the better position we will be for the second shot. Second shot, we do play with the Thorn. I can say that you can play with a Hornet, and you can also play with the Falcon or any other short iron that does have a good ball guideline. But I would recommend to go with the short iron that does give you the best ball guideline, because that will help a lot. Spin to pin is what I'm saying normally, and that's the same case here. We do want to avoid playing too close to the bunker, so make sure that you adapt backspin or some type of side spin to stay away from the bunker and give yourself at least room for a bad great left or right. Adjustment is going to be 10% elevation through club distance. So it's very important that when it's your turn that you go up to maximum, you go down to minimum to check in terms of, your club range where you are at. Because if you don't do that, it's just going to be a guess. At least when checking where min and max is, then it's going to be an educated guess, which is going to be a lot better than just a normal guess. So this one is a very good chance getting a drop, and I would say regardless of what win we're getting in whatever division you're playing, this is gonna have to be an eagle. But let's take a look at the more aggressive option that we can play in tailwind. For the more aggressive option here on hole number 7, there is a couple of things that we do need to have in mind. First, we need to play with a power 5 ball. If you don't have the possibility to play with a power 5 ball with a wind resistance 0 or 1, I would definitely stay away from trying to play this shot. Always. The reason for that is that the water will be massively in play if you don't play with the right ball here. You can see that I aim just on the edge of the fairway / rough. Once that is done, I do adjust max plus 10 and I will push up to max. You can see there that I'm using some top spin and I'm also using 2 bars of left spin. You can see that the needle doesn't go as fast, but that is not really visually shown the correct way, because this is a replay and sometimes it doesn't do that. So now what happens here is that I clip the rough on the other side, roll out, and have a very simple wedge towards the pin. But what is normal to happen is that you're either gonna get this ball to green or you're gonna get it to be over the green. Above the green, there is a very nice funnel with your rough iron that you can play into, and then it's going to be an easy eagle from there as well. One thing that you need to stay away from is obviously to go into the water, and going into the water is unfortunately easier to do than what we want it to be. And the reason for that is that we do have a very bumpy fairway where we do have our ball to hit its first bounce. And if we do hit the wrong spot, that ball is going to go into the water, even though you might did everything else right. And that is something that I need to tell you, because that's why I don't really like the send it option here on this hole. But if the wind is straight tailwind, obviously I'm going to send it also. But if it is a crosswind or tailwind where you're going to have to push it hard, I would say that it would be better to lay up, play the conservative option, and take your chances with the short iron to pin. Hole number 8 is not an easy par 3, but we're gonna try to make it easier than what it is. So we start with whatever power 5 ball you may have. I'm starting with a berserker ball, leaving the target in absolute minimum distance of my club with a red ring by the sand trap line. From there, I will adjust spin. 2.8 backspin, 1.5 par side spin to the left. Once that is done, everything, then I will change to a Titan ball here, because we don't really need to play with a berserker ball. There's no point to use that ball on a par 3. So I'm using a Titan ball, and I could just equally well use a katana ball here as well, as we are nowhere close to being max distance. Maximum distance with a 40% over adjustment is what we are using here. Power 3 ball settings. Bouncing on the fairway over to the green, and we love how the camera angle zooms out like that, then we know it's gonna be close, which it is. Or like, not close, we're getting it to drop for an hole-in-one. Hole number 8 with this method, by starting with one ball to then change to another ball, is really good, because it's tough to find like a good reference without using the min or max club to set up our shot. And we can obviously do the same thing if we do have a tailwind, but by using our wood club to be in max distance instead of being in minimum distance, as we're having here when we do have some headwind. So, good chance in my opinion on hole number 8. Hole number 9, and we will be playing ourselves down to the right hand side. Why? It's because that will give us the best chance for an albatross. And that's what we're looking for. So I'm using the rock in this case. I can also use the quarterback. That would work fine also. The thing that we're looking for though is to play with an accurate driver. And the rock and the quarterback do offer a 100 in accuracy, which would help loads, especially if we do hit a great left or a great right. One ball of curl to the right, and the top spin is going to be dependent on wind angle, but it's going to be somewhere between 2 to 4 bars of top spin. If we do have side spin 3, we use it all. If I have side spin 2, we're going to have to increase curl to the right, getting it down to 350, which is what I would consider to be the minimum yardage to get to. I would say getting a little bit further up would generally be better, especially if we do have a crosswind or a headwind on our drive, and all, because that will be the same wind that we do have on the second shot. Sniper is the club for the second shot. Let's hope that you do have it upgraded, because if you do have it upgraded to level 8 or better, it's going to give you those extra yards. That is going to be very valuable when it comes to trying to dial this shot in. If you do have tailwind, leave the ball guideline short of pin. You can see that I'm 3 green squares short of pin, because we will otherwise come in hot, and we don't want to hit the pin and bounce out. That's not what we want to do. If we do have a headwind, you need to have the ball guideline to go slightly through the hole, because then it will do the opposite of what it does in tailwind. Like in tailwind, we have an extended ball guideline, which means that every bounce is going to be longer than what the ball guidelines show. In headwind, we're going to have a compressed ball guideline, which means that it's going to be shorter than what the ball guidelines show. That's why we're going to be... that's why we're going to have the ball guideline through the hole in headwind and not in tailwind. In crosswind, ball guideline to the hole, not through, not short, to the hole to get you the correct way. You don't have to play with a kingmaker, but there is value with a kingmaker here to reduce the wind, to keep the power, and also have the side spin, especially on the drive. In my opinion, this is a good chance for an albatross, but it's not really something, a hole that I do count on dropping it every single time. Thank you so much everybody for watching this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division for the Northshore Tournament here in Golf Clash the game. Video sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and if you're looking for the absolute most best and detailed guides on the market for Pro and Expert and or Master, you go to the, patreon.com/golfclashtommy and check out our ultimate tournament guides. If you are looking to improve your tour gameplay, we are the only content creator that offers both, so check out the exclusive tour guide packages on Patreon as well, linked directly in the description down below. Thank you once again for watching, and good luck in the Northshore Tournament.